All right, welcome back to Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and today we have a very special show for you. Let me give you a couple of words about my guest today. Actress, host, speaker, and author. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Miss Angela Ray. How are you?
I am good. Ty, how are you?
Good, I'm good. First and foremost, I just want to say welcome. And you have a very interesting background. You have been you've been on stage, you've been on TV, you've been on film. All right. From where I'm from, that's called a triple threat. All right. So, we're going to get into that in a second, but you've been on such shows as Queen Sugar, The Resident, Sleepy Hollow. You've been on Atlanta with Donald Glover, I believe.
Yes.
And you're best known as Carol from Love Thy Neighbor with Tyler Perry. But you've also been in a movie of his as well, Boo, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me just ask, okay, even though I named all this good stuff, how does one get started in acting? How did you get your start in all of this?
Interestingly enough, I got started in acting by way of my speaking. That was kind of my introduction into performing in front of people. And I started speaking in the church. My very first speaking gig was my Easter speech. And I am too young to remember it. But as my cousins shared this story over the years, it becomes more and more legendary. All I had to say was Happy Easter Day, because that's all I could remember at that time. But my mom apparently said, make sure you say it loud and clear. And kids take things very literal. So apparently I just walked up to the front of the church in front of everybody and I was like, Happy Easter Day! And the entire church erupted.
Okay.
And for me, I guess internally it was like, oh, I did good. And so that kind of got me comfortable. I know, speaking in front of people. So I started doing more speeches, Christmas, Easter speeches in church. But then in school, while I was in elementary school, I had an opportunity to enter this contest called the Civic Oration Contest. It was sponsored by Modern Woodmen of America. And in the 5th grade, I entered, and I didn't even place. Maybe I was in the top 5, I don't know. But in the 6th grade, I won. I placed first in front of the entire school, and I advanced to the next competition. And at the next level, I placed second, which still got me into the state competition. And then when I got to state, that was a wrap. I didn't go any further. But those early experiences in front of an audience kind of helped me feel comfortable in front of people. And so by the time I was in the 7th grade, I was in this organization in school called Forensics. Had nothing to do with crime scene investigation, but it was, just to be clear, it was a extracurricular activity. And so we got to participate in different types of presentations. Original oratory was what I gravitated towards because it was just writing your own speeches, but they also had humorous interp, which basically was doing a scene from something funny, and dramatic interpretation, which was doing the scene from something serious. I tried my hand at comedy. I did not do well. And then I tried my hand at drama, and all of a sudden I started winning. So yeah, that's how I got into acting, and then eventually studying and in college and doing plays and all that stuff. But that was where the seed was planted.
So let me ask, what was it about drama that, made it more real for you than comedy?
Honestly, it was the material that I selected, because what's interesting is, you were talking about some of the shows that I've done and working with Tyler Perry, who is a comedic genius. And it wasn't until I first did Love Thy Neighbor, that was the first sitcom I did. And it went over very well. And I was even surprised at it because I had not thought of myself as a funny actress. And all of a sudden, I started booking more and more comedy. And so as I look back on it and thinking about what I was doing in 7th grade, I just had the wrong material. It wasn't a good script. I just didn't select it well. And, unfortunately, whoever the teacher was, I don't remember who was, our, I guess you could say our staff liaison for that organization, didn't help me find great material, but I guess I found the right material for drama that was good for me. And, that's why drama stuck. I don't think it had to do with me not being a funny actress or me not being better at drama. Just had the right script.
And you know what, to your point, sometimes I believe that's what it all comes down to. I do this segment sometimes on my show called the Hollywood Myth. Reality versus, what you thought it was going to be when you got here versus what it really was. So,
Right.
and usually when I hear people talk about what you're talking about, like the material, sometimes people are just going out here trying to audition and go for roles and roles and roles. But as you said, like if you know what it is that you do and you hone in and practice that, not a problem. And which is why you are where you are now. All right. But that's okay. We still gonna come back to that Easter speech later on though. All right. So moving on, you say you are a speaker as well. What is it about speaking that, how can you like compare speaking to acting? Like how do the two connect to you?
I think they can. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think they connect because they both are about impact, but impact in different ways. And so thinking about film and television, there is a responsibility that whether people want to accept it or not as actors that we have when we take on different roles. People, and it's not to say you can never play a bad role, because honestly, the role that I had on Love Thy Neighbor, I didn't realize it was such a big deal, but it was a little bad role. It wasn't that bad. It's comedy. But all of a sudden, my circle, people were calling me like, well, you didn't tell me you was playing a such and such, just in case, I won't spoil it, just in case people want to see it. It is on Hulu right now, so you can catch Love Thy Neighbor on Hulu. But yeah, from my mom to my line sisters to my cousins, and I was like, but it's just the role, like it's not me.
Okay, so let's stay with that right there. I talk about expectations sometimes, what people expect from you versus what you actually do. Like, people expect you to have a serious role, correct? Because you've had so many other serious roles, but then you do something like this, which is, sort of a sick, like, hey, this is comedy, I'm up here, this has more of a comedic flow. Well, I didn't know you were going to do that. I never expected that from you. Well, why not? If this is acting, if this is part of my craft, why not expect this from you? And as you just said, you had all these people come at you like, oh, well, hey, what's this? How do you go from here to here? But honestly, to me, that just shows a character of range, personally. And that's something that you definitely need in Hollywood these days, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But let's cross over a little bit. I want to talk about this author side of Miss Angela Ray. You've written a couple of books. Blackberry Whispers, and Rays of Motivation. I want to talk about Rays of Motivation for a second because it's about it's about empowering me. It's about empowering, staying encouraged and energizing. Can you talk a little bit more about that, especially now in these days and times with COVID and everything else that's going on? How can people, remain, energized, empowered, and stay encouraged?
I think it's a choice, and I don't want to say that lightly or flippantly. What I mean by that is you have to be intentional, because it is very easy in this time period to either become isolated, to become so anxious that you kind of lose your sense of self, and you can just really, really, really fall down into a pit of fear. I will say for myself, even at the beginning of this pandemic, the very, very beginning, I was in shock. I was waiting for the other shoe to fall because, when everything started getting shut down, the first thing that, I'm a Carolina girl, so I'm a graduate of UNC, and big basketball school. We were not going to the tournament this year, by the way, just so you know, to be clear, we were not going.
I didn't want to say that. Look, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm originally from Chicago. There's a lot of UNC fans in Chicago who feel your pain. So for my people back home, we have a true Tar Heel here, so she feels your pain. Trust me.
Yes. But watching, I think when I first heard that they were saying, oh, the NCAA tournament is going to be played without fans this year. And I was like, oh, that was the first thing. Then they said the tournament was completely going away, maybe a day or two later. And I was like, oh, this is really serious. We're not playing an NCAA tournament. And then as a side note for me as a Carolina fan, I was like, oh, well, it don't matter. We weren't going anyway. We weren't going to the big dance, so whatever. But waiting, every day there was something new. And the NBA was playing, and then someone tested positive, then they stopped the game. So at first it was just a deer in the headlights. And then once things shut down, like the parks, like I would go to the park often to walk. And when the park shut down, it was like, oh, how do I get out? What do I do? There are no sports, gyms are closed. Yeah. So for maybe like a week or so, I think I was very nervous. I didn't know what to do in terms of being able to do activities outside of the house and be safe. And then I had to become intentional about connecting to people, in terms of using technology. I remember I had a colleague, I don't know how we ended up doing it wasn't Zoom. We ended up doing a video call on Instagram. Instagram does have that feature. Don't ask me how I found out. That was on the accident. Right. But they do have that feature. All right. And we did a video call one night, and I could tell for both of us it was something that we needed. Because we talked longer than we have ever talked ever. And so being intentional about doing something that makes you feel normal. One day it was one Sunday, I'm used to going to church. Yes. And maybe about 3 weeks in, I was just like, this does not feel like Sunday to me. So I literally got dressed, put on my church, I'm talking heels. I had on a church hat, came into the living room with my Bible, watched church. We've always had church online. I will say that was one thing that my church didn't have to do. We didn't have to pivot. We already had church online every Sunday. So I watched church online, and then I cooked Sunday dinner. I cooked mac and cheese. I fried chicken. It felt like Sunday to me, but it took me being intentional and trying to create some normalcy that worked for me. And so going back to your question about, raising motivation, how do people stay empowered and encouraged? That's what I mean by a simple choice. Is it crazy that I actually put on heels and put on a dress and a church hat? I don't know. Crazy for who? For me, it helped ground me in some sense of normalcy for going to church. And instead of just, picking up the phone, pulling up Facebook or YouTube and watching church from the bed, truly bedside Baptist, and just watching it on my phone, I actually got up and went through the routine of what it was like for me to go to church. So I went to the living room, and then I actually put a little snap on my Instagram and tagged my church in it, and they reshared it. So, okay. But yeah,
See how everything works out. So hey, look. But that's very key of what you just said. Like, you went through your normal routine as you would do any other time because you were at a point where, hey, you know what? This feels a little abnormal to me. I'm used to doing this at this time. So, you know what? I'm going to go do that. And then, hey, you came up with the idea, well, we've always had church online. Let me just go to the living room or whatever, prepare, and sent out a snap. Church, hit you back. Hey, you know what? It's a win-win for everyone. All right, it's a win-win for everyone. Yeah. But let's talk about this new book you have here. Okay, it's a very long title. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Title and subtitle.
All right. Megastar Student Leadership: Lessons I've Learned. That's all I have right now. But
lessons that I learned as an actress that can help you lead, achieve, and succeed.
Okay, all right. To lead, achieve, and succeed. Let's talk about that. First and foremost, everything is self-titled, but can you give us a little bit more insight as into those things that you talk about in the book?
Yes. So Megastar Student Leadership, you mentioned how I think one of the questions you asked earlier, and I don't even know if I answered it that well, was about, how the speaking and the acting relate and how they go together. This book for me is how they go together, because I take a lesson that I learned in the field of acting, whether that's on stage or whether that's in film and television, and I share the lesson as an actress, and then I adapt it to student leaders. The book is geared towards high school and college students, so it translates well for both, because 19th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade people are doing similar things in terms of steps for the next level as they do in college. And so that's how they relate, because oftentimes I'm going into, before COVID, going into high schools and colleges and speaking, and then being able to share what I do and what I've learned as an actress is a way that I was able to bridge both parts of what I do together. So for example, one of the lessons in the book is classes are classic. Well, people need to know that as an actress, I'm constantly studying. Just because I've booked a movie role or a television role doesn't mean I stop studying. I'm still working with coaches. I'm still getting audition prep. And so when you are in high school and college, your classes are that classic training. Yes, if you play basketball, that's an important part of your high school or college experience. Yes, if you are in a club or an organization, that may be an important part of your experience, especially if that's something that may take you into a career. But at the end of the day, classes are still a classic way to get trained.
Okay. So what was the response from, because look, I work with youth, and I can tell you sometimes, even when you're telling them everything that they need to hear and you're laying it out for them, sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. But Sometimes I feel like when the messenger comes with, some added things, and, you come with an acting background, people can look back and, they can actually chart you, see you. Oh, okay, she's been in this, she's been in that, she's done this. How was the response from the youth as far as that? And college students as well?
It varies from time to time. It depends on where I am. I will tell you that there are times I go into a school and it's interesting. People read off my bio, which is just my accomplishments. It's not really who I am. It's just some of the stuff that I've done. And I can literally, sometimes I'm looking into the audience as my bio is being read, and I'll see, some young girls looking like, I get the one up, like, well, who is this? She here? She did all that, but she here? Why she here with us? Did she really do all that? Or one of my favorites, especially now, I think when I first started speaking more heavily in the early 2000s, when every kid did not have a smartphone, it was different. But I remember going into a school maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just speaking to a class. It was actually a favor for my line sister. And someone was like, so I see that you were on One Tree Hill, because what they were doing was Googling me while I was there speaking.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that is a little bit different. That was the first time that I was like, oh, so they want to make sure that the person, everything that I say I've done, they can go out on the internet and see it in real time. So it really depends, on the school, on the community, what the school. I mean, overall, I've been well received. I usually incorporate my funny side into my presentation. So, my presentations are generally interactive. Sometimes I get students involved, bring them up on stage. Oftentimes I could, roam the audience, as long as my presentations have the right microphone. That's a whole nother story in terms of going to places and microphones. Every microphone is not created equal, and it makes a difference, in your speech. No. So, yeah, but overall, the response has been good. And I think that being able to break down what I do as an actress into relatable things for them, adapt them, because I call the lessons real world. And real world for me is REEL, and real world for them is REAL.
Okay. All right then. That's real REAL talk. All right. So there you go from Miss Angela Ray. Before I get into my last question, you just said something very interesting. As pretty much you said, when you go into a crowd or you go and, you're going to go speak to these youth, or you're going to go speak to, college students or what have you, they're reading off your bio. Okay. And it's really not, that's just 1/4 of who you really truly are. Like, there's a whole other Angela Ray besides of, all these things I've accomplished. What is one thing that you may want people to know about you, Angela Ray, not the actress, but Angela Ray, the person?
I like soul food. I like to eat.
All right. Okay. Hey.
And I believe that food brings us together. I mean, I say that jokingly, but I so believe that food can bring us together, much the same way that music does. There's a reason why that movie Soul Food resonated with so many people, because that traditionally at one time was the time when people could come together. I remember as a kid, very, very young, in my early days, my parents, they would rotate on Sunday. So one Sunday we would visit my mom's mom. The next Sunday we would visit my dad's mom. And it was all around Sunday dinner. I hate we stopped that as I got older, but it was all around Sunday dinner. And when I think about, growing up, getting a little bit older, especially my college years, I remember I brought one of my line sisters home with me, with my mom was hosting a fish fry. Ooh. And people came from everywhere. These fish fries were so legendary that people were trifling. They showed up with their own Tupperware. That's trifling to me. I mean, it's one thing for someone to offer, hey, would you like to take a plate home? But people got to the point they started showing up with their own Tupperware. But those gatherings were so much fun. We played basketball, volleyball, everything. So I feel like soul food is not just food for your soul, but food for your spirit.
Okay. So let me just say, as a person who's shown up to an event with Tupperware before, let me just say that, speaking for those who have, not the trifling folks now, because I didn't leave with it full and top, I didn't have to smash it down. I'm a courteous guest. But, okay. But no, sometimes you just want to make sure that, hey, I trust what I brought. Not to say that that's not bad, but I trust what I bought. Okay. I'm gonna leave that alone right there.
Okay. All right.
But before we get out of here, this is what my show's known for. So, Miss Angela Ray, what is the one word that best describes you and why?
Radiating.
Radiating. Okay. May I ask why?
And yes, because I believe that there is something that when someone is in my presence that they're going to see shine from me. And my goal is for that to be positive energy, positive love. Every now and then if I'm in a bad mood, I'm radiating something else. But yeah, it is what it is. When you are, I think that people have to realize, sometimes you come around someone, let's say it could be someone that you know well. There are times that just being in someone's presence, it doesn't even matter what they say. You just feel bad because they have that kind of energy around them. There have been people that I've tried to be friends with. I just realized I can't. They suck the energy out of me. And likewise, on the flip side of that, there are people that you may come around and you just don't know what it is, but you just feel so good when you're in their presence. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what they say, there's just something about their energy. So that is me. I have a poem in my book called, my book of Raising Motivation, called Born to Shine, because I believe that we are all born to shine. The Bible tells us, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work. And that is my goal.
Truer words, never been spoken by someone. Angela Ray. There you go. All right. Man, look, no, I totally feel what you just said, because sometimes, even you yourself, you bring off the radiant positive energy just in this interview alone, just in everything that we talked about, and you've shown your comedic side as well through it, and that's personality, and that shines through. And especially, as I said before, in this day and time, we need as much positivity as possible with everything that's going on in the world. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yes, shining through for everyone to, be positive. I love it. Miss Angela Ray, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, how can people find you?
You can find me on the World Wide Web at www.angelaray.com. You can find me on most social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Angela Ray, THE Angela Ray. Not to be confused with all those other ones, because apparently it's a very common name. So you want to find the Angela Ray. And on YouTube, I'm at Angela Ray TV.
Okay, all right. Any shout outs? Anybody you want to say hello to? Hello, hi, no, yes?
Let me, I keep saying, for some people, they might not understand. I've been saying my line sister, my soror. Let me shout out my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, as well as all of the members of the Divine Nine, because, during this time of, Black Lives Matters and activism, many of us, all of the organizations, many of us are on the front lines working towards social justice. So definitely shout out my sorors, but all of the members of the Divine Nine are busy with feet on the ground, making things happen.
And I'm gonna piggyback off that. As she said, man, I want to give a shout out to all my brothers of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity and all of my sorors of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. Man, all of the people in the D9, man, love you all, love what you do, keep supporting, keep fighting a good fight. Man, this is Ty Brownlow. This is Word with Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and tybrownlow.com. Word with Ty Brownlow. Look it up. We out. I want to thank Miss Angela Ray. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. I appreciate it.
All right.